podcast. Make sure you subscribe for us, Field of 68 Network, Big Vol'n podcast. And, man, we've had some great guests. I'm as excited about this one, and I hope you are too. My man, former assistant coach on my Tennessee staff, has won everywhere he's been, from the JUCO ranks to the Power 5 to now getting his first head coaching opportunity in a Power 5 conference, long overdue, at Wake Forest. The men's basketball coach, Steve Forbes. Forbesy, how are you, man?
What up, Dane? Did you memorize that, or did you have that written down?
No, there was a lot of things I tried to not say. I was like, well, let me give them a proper introduction. But I'm actually down here with family in Destin, Florida. What I did not mention is that where you were coach at Northwest Community College right down the road, at Pompano Joe's, they still have your picture up for most Bloody Marys ever consumed on a Sunday morning. But
here we go.
Hey, you know what, guys? I'm joking about the picture. It's not there. However, the legend still seems to be there.
Let me tell you how much respect I had in Northwest Florida. My first year, we went 32-2, went to the national championship, lost 2 times in a row, lost. I like the Brad Stevens of basketball, right?
But like 70-4 or something.
Right. 62-6. Okay. Coaches know their record. So my birthday's March 22nd. By the way, it's coming up if you want to send me something. And my wife said, Janetta said, let's go across the bridge. As you know, Niceville's on the other side of the Bay Bridge. Let's go over to Tennesse and get something to eat. So she took me over there and got me some crab legs. I was a happy guy. And so the waiter came up to me later and said, hey, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm the head basketball coach over here at Northwest Florida. We just went to the national championship. He goes, I didn't even know they had basketball. I'm like, God, I love this place. This is so awesome.
Yeah. You didn't have to explain to the waiter what your game plan was the last 2 minutes or whatever.
I didn't have to explain why Dane Bradshaw was 2 for 20 and we're still starting him.
Right, yeah.
He's a great passer.
Oh, man, yeah, that's right. Hey, speaking of which, and I'll let you make plenty of fun of me throughout the podcast, but I am curious. I've never really asked you this. You're born and raised in Lone Tree, Iowa. Right. You played baseball at Southern Arkansas, where you meet your wonderful, beautiful wife.
True.
But baseball, what was the basketball niche? Did you just grow up loving basketball in Iowa? Rarely, I don't ever hear of a basketball college athlete becoming a baseball coach. How'd you get into it?
Dane, I played basketball for 3 years in college. I played 2 years in junior college. I played baseball and basketball. I transferred to Grandview College my junior year to play baseball and basketball. I was actually on a basketball scholarship, full ride. And then it just didn't go well. It's the only time in my life I really just didn't like playing. I didn't like the situation. So I had some friends of mine from junior college that had transferred to Southern Arkansas to play baseball. And I just took a whim. My parents were not happy. I transferred my senior year to Southern Arkansas just to play baseball, maybe with the hopes of coming back my 5th year and playing hoops. But, and during that year, we went to the World Series. We got 3rd, had a great year. I met my wife. We got engaged. I didn't play my 5th year. I just did my student teaching. But I really had played all the way up to that point. But to answer your question, I probably changed my life when Lute Olson became the head coach at Iowa, probably in 1974, something like that. Lute came. He changed the Iowa program. I grew up about kind of like you did. You grew up around Memphis. I grew up 10 miles from Iowa City. So I'd go to the Iowa games. Ronnie Lester became my all-time favorite player, still is to this day, college players. And I was just around the Iowa program a lot. They didn't recruit me, but they were always good to me. I'd go to practice, and I think I fell in love with basketball probably because of, Lute Olson, and then I had a really good high school coach.
Well, you've had your share of success in March, and you understand what March Madness is all about, Selection Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to the Vols stuff here in a minute. But, see, you hear these different things throughout the year or throughout March of, well, it's all about matchups. Well, it's all about seeding. And then, conference tournament momentum. If you had to rank those, though, can you rank those? Because, on one hand, because you lived it at Wichita State, you guys had one of the greatest regular seasons in history. You get a 1 seed. But then all of a sudden, the most talented 8, 9 seed, whatever Kentucky was right there in your bracket. So, what do you think the most important thing is?
I've been thinking about that, Dane, because watching the show on Sunday, I thought about Michigan going, man, North Carolina is my 8 seed. What the heck? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Georgia Tech's like a 8 or 9 seed too, and maybe a 9. And if I had them as a 9, I'd be like, man, that is not right.
LSU, in some ways, I understand the committee. You don't have to say this, I will, but I've said this to Will Wade, like nobody's going to do LSU any favors because of the cloud of their program.
Right.
However, the other part of that is that 1 seed might have to take on a really good LSU team.
There's no question. I mean, like you just said, I mean, we're sitting there 34-0 coming out of, winning 31 in a row at Wichita State, winning 3 in a row in the Valley, being the number 1 seed, and you're like, all right, man, this is awesome. And then an 8 seed comes up and it's Kentucky. And you're like, are you kidding me? And then it's Louisville and then Michigan to go to the Final Four. Now, Wichita State had gone to the Final Four the year before, so you can't convince me that maybe they didn't want to see that again. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but the path was not,
Well, they love storylines.
I would say probably seeding. You got to be playing good and all that. That's a given. I would probably say seeding, and I think there has to be an upset. Now, and I'll use this is as an example. When we went to the Elite Eight at Tennessee, we beat a really good San Diego State team in the first round. And after the game, I remember asking Shea, man, who is this Kawhi Leonard dude, man? Golly, who is he? I mean, he had like 20 rebounds, right? You just thank God he couldn't shoot threes at that time, so Kawhi Leonard. But then, Georgetown loses to Ohio, so we, instead of playing Georgetown, we play Ohio U. No disrespect to them, but we'll take that. And then we get Ohio State in the Sweet 16. We get to the Elite Eight. I've said that to you guys. You think about your year you got in. You get Winthrop in the first round, and that's a pretty good matchup. It's a hell of a game. But then you get Wichita State, which you lose to. Yeah. But then the George Mason is the Sweet 16 game. So you got a pretty good path. Greg Marshall, the year that they went to the Final Four, they beat Gonzaga. They beat Pitt. Great wins. But their Sweet 16 game was LaSalle, and no disrespect, but it's like, I think you got to catch one of those too, man. And, I think from my experience getting as deep as I've been several times, I think sometimes upsets are important as well.
Yeah, you're dead on. And for this year's Tennessee team, my whole sort of message or theme has been, even though they had a roller coaster regular season, I was like, man, but their non-conference resume was good enough to land them the 5 seed. And this was, but a couple of weeks ago, it was starting to look like 7, 8, 9. I was like, man, they got to finish somewhat strong. Just hold on to that 5 seed, because then you've got a pretty dang good path to the Sweet 16. But I'm going to take you back to y'all's Elite 8 run, because that was the other example I used on this podcast to keep Tennessee fans optimistic. What do you remember about that regular season, though? Because you guys got a 6 seed going into the NCAA tournament, and that was after a first-round exit of the 8-9 game the year before of Oklahoma State. And, Tennessee was still a regular in the tournament. However, people are like, man, come on. And it was, hey, is Bruce Pearl going to get back to pressing and all that stuff? Y'all had Bobby Mays, Wayne Chisholm, J.P. Prince, Scotty Hobson, and a lot of talent. But a 6 seed wasn't the expectation necessarily for the fan base. What do you remember about the regular season prior going to the –
Well, the regular season wasn't real regular. I remember going to your hometown of Memphis on New Year's Eve day and beating Memphis. And then proudly I can say I've never lost in the FedEx Forum ever. And coming home and thinking life was pretty good. I was sitting at my friend's house on New Year's Eve morning. I think Jeanette and the kids were gone because they were at her parents in Louisiana. And come across the bottom of the
ticker
on ESPN said 4 players arrested, for at Tennessee. And then my phone started blowing up and I had to get to the office. And unfortunately, we lost Tyler Smith, who was a hell of a player. And I love Tyler to this day. And, so we went through some drama, but sometimes that brings you together. And if you remember, we beat UNC Charlotte right after that. They were pretty good. And then we had the big game against Kansas. And, I'll never forget that the rest of my life, and Skylar McThree, making that shot. And I remember I had talked him into coming, not recruited him to kind of be, to be a walk-on and not a scholarship player at other places. And I think Santa Clara was maybe a place he was thinking about going. I remember after that game saying, "Who'd Santa Clara play today?" And so that kind of gave us some it gave us a lot of confidence, and so then we kind of got on a roll. I don't remember the regular season, the SEC. I know we played pretty well. We ended up getting –
But Tyler, out of the guys that got in trouble, Tyler was the only one that got
right.
kicked off, right? So then y'all slowly start to bring your roster
Well, that's
back.
what I'm saying. Each guy kind of came back at a different time. Yeah. Cam, Melvin,
Brian.
Big Baby.
Yeah.
And so, we were piecing it back together, right? And, Bobby was playing at a really high level, like you said, JP, Wayne. We had good players. Kenny Hall was helping us as a freshman. Even Ronaldo was playing pretty good off the bench. We just had good chemistry, I don't really remember the SEC tournament, but I remember – getting in the tournament. And that first game, San Diego State, was a battle. And I remember Melvin made a pretty big play late, score a basket. He's from San Diego, so that was a big play for him. And that's the truth. After the game, I'm like, man, who is this Kawhi Leonard dude? And Brian Dutcher and I are really good friends. And I remember asking him, like, who is this guy? Well, obviously he ends up playing for my best friend, Nick Nurse, winning the world championship. But later on, I figured out who he was. And then the Ohio game,
but I'm going to cut you off there for a second on the Ohio game because, I understand where, the players, everybody's like, look, we're ready for Georgetown or, under Conzo Martin, Duke got upset by Mercer.
Right.
And it's one thing to be like, hey, well, we're ready for anybody.
Right.
But I don't care. There is a excitement that comes with, oh my gosh, we only have to beat Ohio to go to the Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't say that, but
no. In fact, you got to calm it down. Like, listen, fellas, they're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember they had a little guard named Cooper. I can't remember his name, but DJ Cooper, I think. And I remember we iced his ball screens, and he had a really hard time with it. And that was back when everybody was icing or down in ball screens at that time. I had picked it up actually from when I'm watching the year before watching Utah play Gonzaga, and Jim Boylan was the coach at Utah, and he's an NBA guy, and he was doing that. And I'm like, God, I never seen it before. So, it helped with that game, I remember. But we just, we were a better team, but you have to still go win the game. And so, as you know in scouting, you always want to respect your opponent, and you have to build them up. Now, sometimes, we build them up to be a little better than what they are. But I think you get somebody's attention when you're in the building and you watch them beat Georgetown. You're like, oh, okay. we gotta win our game, and then we gotta play.
Right.
And to our credit that we did, and then, we roll into the Sweet 16 into St. Louis, and we can go back to Ohio State, you and I mean, crushing one of the most hardest defeats I've ever had. I've had two in the NCAA tournament. I call the NCAA tournament March Madness, turns into March Sadness.
Yeah.
In your first year, you had a crushing loss, after a great win. Not your first year. But
and we felt good. I mean, and man, we felt really good. We had the in terms of like, all right, you want all the things to kind of line up. You want a little bit of momentum from the end of the year. You want a good seed, and you want good matchups. And when we got that 5 seed against Virginia, or excuse me, Long Beach State, who had a lame duck coach, we smacked them. I mean, we smacked them. And then
a JUCO game broke out late in the game. We went and set a high ball screen, and Lamar Smith drove it down the lane like from half court and laid it up. I looked at Shay and I said, "Is this a JUCO game?" I mean, we scored 124 freaking points in a game.
I know. I think I had like 3. It was awesome. Yeah. No, but I was getting my assist total up for sure. Yeah, but you're right though. It's the matchups, and then Virginia was like, all right, we can live with that. J.R. Reynolds was balling on us, but he hurt his ankle a little bit, and that helped us. But we were in that Ohio State bracket, and we had played Ohio State earlier in the year in the regular season, and we were smaller, but we felt like we had a good game plan for Greg.
I mean, if Lofton can make a free throw, we win the game. I mean, of all people, I mean, I called him Mr. 1-and-1. Buckeye. Remember that? I called him Buckeye to piss him off, but yeah, I mean, but you had experienced it like Wichita State, and I had experienced it my first year in the tournament. Was that same year you went? Yeah. We beat Syracuse in the first round at A&M. And they had just made their huge run through the Big East tournament, McNamara, and I just was teasing him about it because he's assistant at Syracuse, and we beat him. But then we caught LSU with Tyrus Thomas and those guys, and they beat us at the buzzer. Daryl Mitchell made a 3 at the buzzer to beat us, and they go to the Final Four. So, March Madness, March Sadness, and that was a crushing loss. So then we go in the Ohio State game. Like you said, we had confidence, right? We knew we could beat them, and
But I'll say this, and I've been open about it, and I love all my teammates. But, I was the only senior on that team. We had a few juniors, but our slogan was deserve victory,
right.
And that served us well the prior year. But we were really young with some new guys that were immature knuckleheads at times. So at the same time, I was in that locker room, and we blew a 17-point lead. But even looking back on to this day, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure we deserve to advance. Like, and I look, I'm not bashing our team, but there are times where you want to be able to look around and say, all right, we left it all out there. We played extremely hard. Our game plan was there. Y'all coached your butt off. But, the veteran type stuff does matter. Wayne Chisholm's urgency against look, I love Wayne, but Wayne Chisholm, the way he played against Ohio State the second time around as a senior, he was a freaking monster, And so, but with that in mind, your best teams that you've ever coached don't always get the privilege to advance the furthest because of some of these upsets.
No.
What is a team that you've had that you said, man, I never thought that team could do any damage in March, yet ended up getting further than you expected?
Damn, we went to the Elite Eight.
Got to be the Elite Eight. All right, on the flip side of that, what about the team that you said, man, that's one of the most talented teams, we just didn't have our game?
The year before. I mean, we went 30-4. We were awesome. I go back and watch those games, those YouTube things sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, and I watch our team that won the SEC for the first time in like 40 years, and that team was legit.
Now, this was the number 1 seed team, right?
No, or two, because of the tornado.
Or excuse me, I'm sorry, y'all got number 1 ranking that year, the Memphis.
Yeah, but I think we lost the number 1 seed because of the tornado. I mean, we barely beat South Carolina the first game. I know we had just crushed them. It's crazy. Dave Odom was the coach. Now he comes to my practices. It's crazy. But had the tornado not hit that night, we're going to have 20,000 fans in there.
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday. We're not losing to Arkansas. And Stephen Hill made a crazy opposite shoulder jump shot to beat us. No way Georgia's beating us in the dome. Now, it's different when you don't have any fans, but we just went through the COVID era, doing. But that team was that might be one of that team and the team that I coached, helped coach at Wichita State that was 35-0 or whatever. That team, those two teams are the two of the best teams I've ever been a part of.
I may have had my years mixed up. I forgot that was your Elite Eight run was, I guess, following that.
Yeah, that team was
because you had everybody back, and I'm happy to make fun of myself. But the only person you lost from the previous year was me, and you replaced me with Tyler Smith. And you guys,
we didn't have our power forward back. By far one of the greatest passers I've ever coached, and I say that with all truthness to that. But I remember at halftime Ohio State, and I will tell you this, I think it's some coaching too now. Very rare had we seen a flat back straight up the middle ball screen, a flat ball screen in the middle of the court.
And for our listeners, you're talking my senior year, 2007, Sweet 16, up 17 at the half. Mike Conley, Greg Oden,
right?
Everybody, all Tennessee fans remember
whipping their ass, okay? Yes. And I'm liking it. But remember T. Jones at halftime, I'll never forget this. He said, "Forbes, man, I don't think we could lose this game." And I'm like, don't say that. I looked at him like, come on, T. So they go flat back ball screen second half, and Conley's getting downhill, and he probably owes me part of his salary for what's making him look good when he got, because, he went from really no kind of a guy to being a lottery pick, right?
Mike Conley was probably coming back for his sophomore season.
No question.
And then he explodes against us and becomes a lottery pick.
And so, and you got to remember, who are we looking at down to go to the Final Four? Well, it's Memphis. And we just them at home, right? So it's perfect, And so now I'm kind of an emotional wreck because A&M had played the game before, and those were all my guys, and they lost at the buzzer, and I was feeling like crap. And so we go into the game. Now we're whooping them. They go flat back, straight up ball screen the second half. Conley's getting downhill, and I'm yelling at hey, man, we just need to trap it. Trap him and throw it to Odin at three-point line. It don't matter. He's not going to do anything, but we just couldn't get it done, man. And so I remember after that game, that loss, me and Shay went to – I was like, we got to figure out how to do this. So we went to see Lawrence Frank. We spent 2 days in New Jersey Nets training camp watching them defend, and that was my biggest concern was how to defend that, because that wasn't really something that a lot of teams were doing. I had seen it in early 2002, a little bit when we played Florida one time when I was at Louisiana Tech, but they had David Lee and Justin Hamilton, but it hurt us. And so I got to take someone to blame too, as far as a coach, that we didn't probably have the greatest scout, the plan for that. Now, I did want to trap it, and I think that was the way to do it, but as you know.
And it was, and that's kind of how we were that year, though. We were capable of coming back from 17 to 20 points like we did against Kevin Durant, but we were capable of giving that big of a lead up too. That's just.
Yeah, but a lot of great teams were kind of like that. Some of my teams at ETSU, we could get down. You were kind of like Seabiscuit, we had to get a sniff of you going around the track, and then we're gonna blow by you, And my teams were kind of like that sometimes. Last year when we won 30 games, we'd get behind, but then we'd all right, we'd get mad and say, all right, let's go, and then we'd win, and I think that's a sign, of a great team. I understand what you're saying, but I also think there was some really good guys on that team too now, that lost to Ohio State. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of those things.
But what's interesting though is we thought, the prior year before you joined the staff, but C.J. Watson was our point guard. Andre Patterson was a really good player. Major Wingate was still on the team. I think we probably had a better team that previous year, but we peaked way too early. Whereas the next year we were younger, but we started peaking towards the end. And I always felt like, hey, man, we were, even though we were younger, and Wayne and those guys and Ramar may have had some maturity type issues, but they were only freshmen. However, we were playing better entering March than the year before. And so much of it's just, when are you playing good at the right time?
It's timing. And as a coach, people have always asked me, well, how do you get your team to peak? I don't think there's no recipe for that, buddy. If we had it, we'd all be doing it, right? It's just timing. It's just kind of maybe trying to put in some new things with an older team and trying to keep them fresh. But with a younger team, like you just said, it's just playing time, man. And it's just getting the opportunity to compete each night at a high level. You start to gain more and more confidence. And so you're right. Ramar, Duke, Wayne were freshmen, and those guys are starting or playing major minutes. And so the more they played, the more confidence they got. And you're right. Like the great example was the Texas game, which was an unbelievable – one of the loudest times I think I've ever heard Thompson bowling was when, we took it out on the side, and when we went 55 on the side and got the turnover and the place erupted.
At the 5-second call. And Rick Barnes says he's watched that film plenty of times. He said it was still only 4 seconds.
I've played in Texas before. Okay. They count to 3 over there now. Don't even get that twisted. That's crazy. And Coach Barnes and I have become great friends. And, and it's weird how, I was at A&M when he was at Texas, and we had some battles, great games. And then playing him there, in Thompson bowling, and then being at East Tennessee State, we've become really good friends. I think he's a hell of a coach.
How have you seen him evolve? He's been very open about how he's evolved as a person and coach.
I'm going to be honest with you. They weren't very complicated on offense at Texas, and they played a lot of zone. But they had Kevin, they had Buckman. They had Aldridge. LaMarcus Aldridge, P.J. Tucker, Daniel Gibson. You crazy? They probably ran about 2 or 3 things. It was my scout, and he let those guys play, and they played zone. I think when he came to Tennessee, he's been a lot more complicated on offense. They run more of I know he's tight with Bob McKillop. At Davidson, they're a lot more of a motion team, a lot more screening and cutting and moving the ball. And then defensively, I think they're a nightmare. And I don't watch Tennessee a lot this year because this is hard. But early when we were going through our COVID break shutdown, I thought they were dominating defensively. Like I was watching, what's his name? Keontae Johnson, I think.
Yeah.
Is that his name? He reminded me like Gary Payton. He was out there guarding the ball. I was like, who the hell can bring the ball up the floor against this guy?
Yeah.
Springer, I've seen him play a lot because of Bobby being his AAU coach. And honest truth is he's a lot better player than I thought he was going to be in college. He's an NBA player. I didn't see that in AAU. Somebody complained to me one time, a friend, I won't name his name, from Tennessee about Fulkerson, senior. I said, has there been a player in the history of Tennessee basketball that's got more out of his ability than John Fulkerson? I recruited John Fulkerson at East Tennessee State and Jordan Bowden. Like, I don't typically recruit against SEC teams. I thought that was his level, okay? I have the utmost respect for that kid because I think he's gotten the most out through injuries, through all that stuff. He's done way more at that school than I ever dreamed he could do. And so nobody should be complaining about that.
And if you're not playing well and the team is hurting because of it, it just shows how valuable you are. Like, hey, we got to have it.
I don't have the investment anymore. I didn't see one game in the league, okay?
Yeah.
But I just know what he's gotten out of his ability, man.
Yeah.
And he's really –
well, and he's turned he got the elbow. I don't know if you saw it the other night. He got the Omar Payne play. Yeah. So hopefully he can get out of concussion protocol and everything else and be cleared to play. But you're right. He had a tough senior season. However, he started to get that confidence back here the last couple games, play like himself. And you mentioned Keon Johnson, Jaden Springer. Tennessee can be you mentioned some of that break you down stuff. I know you hadn't scouted them necessarily this year, but to me, the freshmen, Jaden Springer, Keon Johnson, they're the two guys that can break you down and go get you a bucket. Everybody knows Rick Barnes likes to share. I keep saying this, but Tennessee, it can be a thing of beauty when they're getting 70% of their makes off of assist. But then when you take that away, what can they do? Well, that's where these freshmen can come in and get you a bucket.
Well, you just said it. When we went to the Sweet 16, almost to the Elite 8 with some freshmen, and why can't they with these guys? Because they're gaining more and more confidence. And you're exactly right. The other day I watched a little bit, and they got into their motion stuff where they're, I call it a Davidson cut to a stagger to a curl. They're swinging it, moving it. And then, like you said, okay, shot clock's at 10. What happens? Well, Jaden goes and make a play. Keon Johnson goes and makes a play. When they get help, they kick, and they find the open guy, and so.
But with that, don't you agree? The guard play, as much as you like Fulkerson Pons, March's guard play, man.
It's all guards.
Who's the best guard you've seen or that you've coached in the NCAA tournament where he just took over a tournament?
Oh, man. In the tournament? That's a great question.
You've had Fred VanVleet. You've had some good ones.
Freddie, coaching Fred, he's special, and we beat Indiana and Kansas my second year, right? I got the East Tennessee State job that week, and then Coach Marshall asked me to keep it quiet because of my relationship with the players. He just didn't want it to be out there. He was so happy for me. So we went to I actually took the job in the hotel, and we were playing Indiana first game, and we beat them. And then we had the big game against Kansas, and it was my scout, and it was my 50th birthday. It was all lined up, and I remember the night before I did the scouting report, and we beat them, and Fred was Fred. He might not have led us in scoring. Like Evan Wessel made some threes, but Freddie's just a hell of a player. He's just a basketball player, and I'm going through the draft. I remember telling a couple GMs, he's not going to grade out on the on the vertical and the cones and all that stuff that don't matter. But he is a basketball player. And, you know, you see what has happened. And several of those GMs have called me and said, you were right. You know, we should have taken him. I mean, just quick thinking about it. I mean, yeah, Fred.
But a guy like that, like it's also, it's not just like you mentioned the grading out. When it comes to March, it's like, who's a winner, man? Who's just a complete dog and that just refused to lose type stuff.
I mean, dude,
that's where you throw potential draft grades out the dang door and just
listen. We went 35-1 and 30-4 in the 2 years I was there. It wasn't me, you know. And they went to the Final Four the year before that. Think about that, you know. And then I leave, and they have one more year. But you know, yeah, I mean, you know, we had like Lofton was a great player, man. But I don't really remember in the NCAA tournament him really ever doing like what he did to Memphis that night his junior year. And I was like, oh my God, who was that? You know, and I had just come back. I was at a 6 a.m. practice that morning with Chris Singleton, you know, that I thought we were going to get and went to Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, I come back thinking I wasn't even there for shoot around, any of that stuff. You know, we go to the game and, oh my God. I mean, he just, remember that? He put him on.
That was the Thompson Bowling Arena. Yeah, we had Memphis. We were still doing the home and home then, and Chris just went nuts in the first half, and we never looked back.
They had their whole team trying to guard him. He was making them all fall down. You know, it was – I never seen – and then, you know, because I remember telling you remember I was like, ooh, Chris Loft. I mean, you know, in practice, he's like, he's not all that, you know. But then I remember before that, we went up to Nashville early to play Oklahoma State. And they had Marcus Dove, you know, and I'd come from out of Big 12, and he was like the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And this dude is straight giving him buckets.
Yeah.
Like they're switching Marcus Dove onto him, and he's giving this dude buckets. And then the most athletic player on the court tipped one in for the game winner, Dane Bradshaw, and he couldn't raise his arm.
Even faked a shoulder injury just in case I missed, you know.
He was raising his arm to give the pump, you know. And so, I mean, Chris was – I mean, I don't even know how to explain him. You know, I use him as an example all the time with my players about, you know, a guy that had the most confidence in the world. Like he deserved to make those shots because he put the time in.
Yeah.
And then when he missed 3 or 4 in a row, he just knew the next 10 were going in. He wasn't shaking his head.
Yeah.
And I used to tell Cam Tatum that all the time his freshman year. You know, Cam was one of those guys. He scored 1,000 points in his career at Tennessee, but early on, you know, his self-talk was terrible. You know, I say, look at Lofton. Does he ever do that? Ever, you know? And so some of those things you can't teach, right?
Yeah. And guys like that get up for the best competition, you know, and like, you know, Chris, when it was like non-conference and we'd be playing, I don't know, a UNC Asheville or something, and everybody's trying to get, you know, we're winning by 20. Like that's when he's the least interested at all. He's like, all right, I'm cool just having 6 points this game. You guys go ahead and get your career highs. And next game, when everybody's taking that away because you guys really aren't that good, I'll be here when you need me. I'll get us 7 threes.
He's the ultimate team player. I coached another guy that I signed at Tennessee that I took to Northwest Florida, you know, Chris Jones from Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
He's the ultimate competitor I've ever – because it was his biggest strength and his biggest weakness.
Right.
I mean – incredibly, like to the point in practice, I'd have to calm him down.
Well, you guys, you and Coach Shea and Brooke Savage will still, you know, y'all could do a whole 30-minute episode on the Chris Jones come from, what were y'all down like 15 with 2 minutes to play or something crazy?
And what the greatest shot ever, now this is the greatest shot I've ever halfway seen in the history of my career. We were down 1, I think, with 3 seconds to go, to lead junior college at home. And I never lost a home game in Northwest Florida. And they shoot to miss. They missed the free throw. They're still up 3 seconds, 2 seconds. I'm walking towards the coach like, I cannot believe we just lost. The ball goes shooting over my head. Chris Jones got the rebound, shot it from the free throw line on the other side of the court and swished it. And I didn't see it go in because I was walking towards the coach like, I mean, I'm like distraught, right? And I hear the crowd just go nuts. I turn around, and Chris has already got his shirt off. You know, the old – and I'm like, what happened? And I swear to God, I got it on tape. He shot a jump shot from the other free throw, from the opposite free throw line and swished it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so
And there you are in the locker room, like, guys, way to never quit. Your resiliency.
oh,
Never mind the fact that I was already walking off the court to that.
I said, well, what a great play I drew up there, man. God dang. We got to practice that tomorrow. Yeah.
Hey, I'll do a couple more for you. I'll let you go. You were part of, and I hate to just keep bringing up COVID stuff and pandemic, but at least last year at ETSU, you guys had a chance to cut down some nets by winning the conference tournament. You got the auto bid, but man, there's nothing like playing in March Madness.
Yeah.
Take me back to your message to the team when the thing's canceled. Y'all huddle up in the locker room, and was that one of the tougher conversations you've ever had with the team?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the week before the tournament, Dane, Pat Good scored 17 points in 5 minutes to come back to beat Western Carolina at home in front of a sold-out crowd. And we cut down those nets for the conference regular season championship. Like you said, we go to Asheville. We run through the tournament, basically. We won double digits every game. We won 12 in a row. We cut down the nets. And so I remember going home on the bus on that Monday night, and I was on the Freddie Coleman show on ESPN, and the guy said, Freddie Coleman asked me, what do you think of COVID? And I said, well, what do you mean? It wasn't right. It wasn't in my head. Like, we just played in front of like 6,000 people, dude. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll be safe, Yeah. So the next night, Greensboro, they're playing, starting to talk about a little bit more ACC tournament. I'm kind of watching it. And then Wednesday, Rudy Gobert walks off the court. They walk off the court in the NBA, and I'm like, oh, crap. So I was supposed to have practice on Thursday, and we didn't have it because I didn't know what to do. And then I drove home Thursday night. I was in my car going home at like 5 o'clock to cancel the NCAA tournament. I had 6 seniors, and now I got to go have this meeting, right? So I remember it was noon on Friday. I had the president in there. I mean, it was hard, man. There was a lot of crying. Little did I know it was going to be the last time I would see these guys. Yeah. That's the other part of it is I didn't take the Wake Forest job until basically May 1. Right. So, I'm trying to tell them I'm trying to remind them all the great things that happened. In the back of my mind, I'm fighting for them to get another year eligibility, but I know that's probably not going to happen. And we got all these guys are going to scatter now and never come back. And, I thought I'd see the underclassmen again. And then when I got the job, I couldn't say goodbye to them. I had to do it on a Zoom, and that was really hard for me because I was really close. Not like I'm close to you. Yeah. I'm close to all those guys. And so, I feel bad because I was watching Selection Show Sunday, and I'm thinking to myself, that team I had was really good now. I mean, I'm not telling you we would have won. Depends on the matchups. Mm-hmm. But we were going to have a pretty good seed. And whoever saw us coming down that line was going to be like, oh, boy. Yeah. And we had a lot of confidence. Right. And we had a lot of older guys. We had size, and we had guards, and we could shoot the ball, and we had the whole thing. And, it's one of those things you're always going to wonder, right? What could have we done? But we're never going to know. Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine you're at a loss of words, and nobody's ever. Every coach I've talked to this year is like, "Look, we're going through this for the first time. What do you tell them?" And they've allowed this year's seniors to come back for an extra year of eligibility, and I get it to a degree. And I don't know how you could have ever done it last year. It's way too complicated. But part of me thinks, even though teams this year and seniors didn't get to have the full experience, they're getting to finish the season. Like, if I had my vote, I would have picked last year's seniors, that didn't get a chance to compete in March. But, there's no right answer. It's just not, I just kind of felt that way because that's what you play for, right? I mean, that's what you aim for. And to have it pulled out from under you, it's just hard you're never going to replace that, and it didn't have anything to do with them. It's a virus. And so I don't know. I mean, I know this, if they let them come back, we'd have had a ball team at East Tennessee State because they all would have come back. Yeah. They all playing professionally at some level. That's the thing about mid-major. Most, those guys aren't thinking about NBA, right? They
Yeah.
know that it's probably overseas for them. And one of the things I'll never forget when Chris Jones had signed with Louisville his sophomore year, and this was the year they won the national championship. So I went to Louisville to watch practice for a weekend, me and Shay, and watching Coach Pitino. And I remember one thing he said to the players I thought was really important. He said, guys, you need to enjoy this because this will be the last time in your life where the fans truly love you. He said, a year from now, you're going to be playing in the NBA, and those fans, they only care about one thing, winning. And if you go overseas, they only care about one thing, as you know, when they don't really care about you. But these fans genuinely love you. They love you as a person. And I always remember that, and I always use that with my teams every year. Is you have to embrace the moment and understand how much these people, how great they feel about you.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a bond, and people kind of feel like they're their own kids, so to speak, that sort of thing. Well, on a brighter note, you've coached a lot of teams down the stretch, won some clutch games as an assistant coach, head coach. Whether it was you as an assistant or as a head coach, what's the best play call you've drawn up in the waning moments of a game?
Well, it was
because you'll always deflect praise and give credit to the players in the media, but what's the thing that you're like, you know what, I was a bad MFer in that late game?
It was really simple. It was a out of bounds play after we'd come back from Hawaii when I was at Wichita State my second year. We had lost to George Washington in the finals. Didn't play well. We were playing Illinois State at home in a big game. We we had that fatigue of that week in Hawaii and traveling back, and they were playing a really kind of complicated zone out of bounds. It wasn't my scout, but I had noticed that they were kind of leaking out toward the corners. So we basically set a screen to Kel Cotton, who's one of the best athletes I've ever seen. Basically, he kind of hit out. He kind of faked like he was going out, and then we set it like a middle screen for him. He came down the middle of the lane, and we threw it to the rim. And he almost knocked a cheerleader out. I swear to God, if you look it up, he dunked it so hard, it almost killed a cheerleader. And it changed. It was like 4 minutes left in the game. And you can see Marshall running down the court and fist pumping and be like, yeah, let's go, And I'm like, but that was just something that was random. That wasn't like some play we had worked on. And Coach ain't one of those guys to be doing a lot of things that we don't work on either, right? And I'm that way too. I'm like, no. But he trusted me. And we did. I mean, that's something off the top of my head that,
No, I mean, that's part of it, though. You got to be able to have some in-game adjustments, and the key to having a staff that you trust and you're seeing something that he's not seeing and vice versa.
A lot of times when it's your scout, you're a lot more locked in, right? It wasn't mine, but, I just saw that, and I don't know. It just worked. Now hadn't it worked, oh, my God, I probably got fired. I don't know. But, sometimes you just gotta go with your gut feeling. That was one of the things I always remembered reading, Dean Smith's books, was how much he trusted Roy Williams on the bench, just as a young guy, just starting out. Like, he always had a good feel for the game. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. I think, Shay and I were really good at that together for a long time, and we do it here. We adjust. I think adjustments are huge. They make the difference in the game. Sometimes they're just little things, but little things turn into big things. And so, that's something that's kind of off the top of my head.
All right, last thing, let you go here. You filling out a bracket? You got a Final Four prediction?
I never do that. It's against the rules, Dane, for me to don't bet on it.
I know you. I know you. I'm not asking you if you're going to Vegas and doing an ACC coaches pool of money. I just didn't know around the house if you and Janetta have a friendly little a bracket on your refrigerator or something.
That one year, I think I just have never done it because I'm the worst at it. Because I always just pick my friends, or so I like so and so because I think that they can, I hope they can win. Now, if I had to look at it, I mean, everybody's going to go with Gonzaga, rightfully so, and Baylor. I think Illinois is playing really well right now. And not just DeSumo, but Curbelo. is a tremendous point guard. Cockburn, I mean, he looks like he could be in starting defensive tackle on the blind side.
He'll appreciate you not pronouncing his last name correctly too.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm not trying.
I'm sure he's never struggled with that.
I'm really not really trying to. I think Brad. I've known Brad. He coached at Dodge City when I was at Barton County.
Yeah.
I like their team a lot. Out of our league, Florida State could get rolling. I mean, guys. I mean, when you play them, you look at their size in person, you're like, oh my goodness. But they got to get going. But they've got the type of team, that really could. So some of those picks, out of the Big Ten, like I said, Illinois, but Michigan's had a tough injury. I don't know how that's going to affect them. I don't know if there's some other teams. There's always some team you're not really thinking about that kind of, like you said, gets a couple upsets, gets through the bracket. But Virginia Tech, I think they're way underseeded. I would not want to see them ever. They play, and of course, I've coached against Mike Young for so long. His teams play so freaking hard, and then they execute. They're hard to play, especially if you don't really understand them. Like you haven't played them, they're going to run a lot of stuff, and you're going to be ready to go. And so I can see them kind of surprising some people too out of our league. And
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm a big fan of Mike Young's. I know you are too, but it's guys like, that I've seen in the SEC, whether it be Kermit Davis or Mike Young at Virginia Tech, and then Steve Forbes at Wake Forest. I think no BS are really inspiring journeys, guys that have paid their dues, no shortcuts. Yeah. And when it used to be, and nothing against some of the young and up and coming coaches, but it used to be it was always an athletic director trying to find the young coach that just went to the Sweet 16 in 1 year. And they're always overlooking the guys in their 50s that like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. And it's been neat to watch y'all's success. And I know more is coming. I got
to tell you real quick a funny story about that. So I was interviewing – basically I didn't even really interview. Now that I think back on it, I think they just tried to talk me into taking the job. So they came out – East Tennessee State came out to Wichita to watch practice, right?
Yeah.
So Dr. Nolan, the president, is the best. And Dr. Sander, my AD, the best. They took me out for dinner. So we're talking, and so I get up to go to the bathroom. Now, they're drinking. They want the wine order or the beer order. I'm like, all right, I'll drink water. I'll be cool about this. All right. So I drink too much water, so I got to go to the bathroom. So I get up. Now, I don't know this till later, and Dr. Sander, the AD, asked Dr. Nolan, what do you think of him? And Dr. Nolan says, well, he's not very corporate. And Dr. Sander said, that's why we need to hire him. He's a basketball coach, And so I'll never forget that.
He's not very corporate. You're like, hell, I'm doing all I can not to drink a bottle of wine with you guys. This was the most corporate polish I could do.
He's not very corporate. And so every time, and I have the best relationship with him, Dr. Nolan, like every time I see him, I go, well, he's not very corporate. I said, how do you like those 30 wins, 27, 26, 25, 24? He's like, I like it. So you never know. Like you said, here's the thing. You hope you get your chance. And when you do, you gotta take advantage of it. It took me all the way to 50, to get a Division I opportunity. But it's a proof in life that you can't hit a single and land on third base. You got to work your way around the bases. And then, as you know, sometimes in life, you're going to get knocked down, and how are you going to handle it? You're going to get bitter, or you're going to get better. And, I just felt like, you be accountable and you move on. And listen, these people don't know our relationship, but, you helped me at a time when I didn't ask for it, and you stepped up and helped me and Coach Shea in a time when we were really hurting. And I'll never forget that. One of the proudest moments of my life was being able to repay you, to help you. And I never knew but honest truth is, when you go through something like that, Dane, you never know if you're going to get back to that point. You just don't. But you got to stay faithful, man. You got to keep plugging. And we did. And here we are, we're in the ACC now. And, I'm from a town of 32, I graduated 32 people in a town with one stop sign. And, here I am coaching, looking down the bench now going, that's Roy Williams down there and Coach K.
I'm blessed and fortunate. We a lot of these student athletes, I hope they realize what they got and take advantage of the great relationships and lifelong relationships that they can get out of it. You, Shay, all those guys I got to play for. Even the coaches I've lost with, over the years, Chris Ferguson, Ed Conroy, all these guys that I call friends to this day. You guys are easy to be there for. I know you'll be there for me. And you guys, and I know one thing for you and Shay both, you'd say, you guys have continued to work through adversity and all those other things to get to the point that you're at, man. But it's not just coach speak when they say, I've got a great wife and great kids, man. That's the hardest part of this gig, is moving your family all around and coming in the door and saying, hey, we got to go here, or we got to go here now. And y'all have
nobody's faced the adversity that you faced by having Mike Bradshaw as your father. I mean, that is adversity. Okay. I mean, your mother has met Mother Teresa. She is Mother Linda. I mean, are you serious?
This much is true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mike Bradshaw was already ruining your reputation at Pompano Joe's, that you tried to keep at a somewhat corporate level over there.
Shocking. Yeah. I mean, we could go all the way back to the wedding, when I was the wedding crasher and made a chapter, I at least got a couple paragraphs in the book, which by now is in a federal prison somewhere. But
ETSU could have asked me real quick if there was anything corporate. I could have given them a lot, whatever search firm that they paid to find out if you're corporate or not. They could have just given me half price. I could have answered.
One of the best pictures on the bar here in the house is you and me. So I mean, you know how we think of you.
That's right. Well, I appreciate everything, man. This you went long for me. Thanks. We'll have to do this as a two-parter. So this is
I could talk to I'm like.
Hey, I'm hoping this is the last time that we have a chance to really catch up with you before all your media inquiries go through the roof in March. So hey, but in 6 days from now, and enjoy a birthday that will not be contingent upon winning and losing, but don't get used to it. So.
All right, well, good to talk to you. I got to get to my phone here. It's blowing up.
All right. See you, man.
See you, man.
Thanks.